I wish I met you before choosing my wife. He didn't whisper it. He didn't shout it. He said it the way a man says something he has been rehearsing in the dark for a very long time and has finally decided the dark is worse than the truth. Margot set down her glass. The wine, the kitchen, the Tuesday evening that had been completely ordinary until 4 seconds ago. She looked at him, and the terrible, beautiful, wrecking thing was, she already knew. She had known for 11 months. She had simply never let herself say it out loud. They had met at a conference in Edinburgh that neither of them had wanted to attend. October, a hotel that smelled of carpet cleaner and stale ambition. Name badges and a dinner seating plan that put 8 strangers around a table with nothing in common except the industry and the exhaustion. He had sat across from her, David Avery, tall, dark-haired, a face that was serious until it wasn't, until something caught his attention, and then it was entirely, disarmingly alive. He had asked her what she did. She told him. Urban planning, the invisible infrastructure of cities, water systems, drainage networks, the architecture nobody sees until the night it fails and a road becomes a river. He had leaned forward. Not the polite conference lean, the real one. The one that meant, keep going. Nobody ever talks about that, he said. They wait until it floods, she said. Then they blame the planners. Of course they do. He smiled, slow, arriving in stages like something he hadn't planned to offer. That's what people do with the things they depend on most. Ignore them until the moment they can't. She looked at him. She thought, who are you? She thought it, and then she looked at his left hand, the way women look, quietly, without ceremony, and she saw the ring, gold, worn smooth at the edges, long settled on his finger. She closed something inside herself, filed him under. Not for you. Went back to her wine. She was very good at closing things. She had practiced it for years. What she did not know, what she could not have known, was that he had looked at her hand too. The email started 3 weeks later. Professional at first, he was an architect. He had read her firm's published report on the Bristol drainage collapse, her report, and he had technical questions. Genuine ones. She could tell the difference. She replied. They exchanged 8 emails about methodology, then 5 about planning law, then 1 she could not explain how it happened about the grief of doing work that only gets noticed when it fails. The best infrastructure, she wrote, is the kind that disappears. You design something to last 100 years, and if you've done it right, no one ever thinks about you again. I find that either very peaceful or very lonely, depending on the day. He had replied within 7 minutes. I think you've just described most of the things worth building, and most of the things worth feeling. She had read that line 4 times. Then she had closed her laptop and gone for a walk in the rain because her flat had suddenly felt too small. He called her for the first time on a Thursday evening in December. I didn't want to type the next part of the conversation, he said. No preamble, no apology for calling unannounced. What's the next part? She asked. The part where I ask whether you actually love what you do or whether you've just gotten very good at it. She sat down on her kitchen floor. She didn't know why she always ended up on the floor in her worst and best moments. Something about the solidity of it, the certainty of something that would not move. That's a question, she said. I know, you don't have to answer. No, she said, I want to. She thought about it, really thought about it, in the way she rarely let herself. Both. I think it's always both. I think love and mastery become the same thing eventually if you stay long enough. Silence on the line. The good kind. Yes, he said quietly. I think that's exactly right. They talked for 2 hours and 40 minutes. She knew because she looked at the clock when they finally said goodnight and felt a specific shock at the time, the way you feel it, after a film that moved you, disoriented, slightly raw, not ready to be back in the ordinary world. She sat on the floor a little longer after he hung up. She did not let herself think his name the way it wanted to be thought. She was very good at not doing that. She met Helena in March, his birthday dinner, a restaurant in Marylebone, warm and amber lit, a long table of people who laughed easily in the way of people who have known each other through several versions of themselves. Helena was extraordinary. That was the thing Margot had not prepared for. She had built a vague picture. Pleasant, probably accomplished, probably fine, and Helena had walked in and dismantled it completely. Tall, composed, brilliant in conversation. She had a laugh that made the whole table turn toward her like plants toward light, and she wore it without knowing she was wearing it. She had been warm to Margot, genuinely warm, asked real questions, remembered the answers, came back to them later in the evening. Margot had gone to the bathroom halfway through dinner and stood at the sink and looked at herself in the mirror for a long moment. She said silently, very clearly, "No." She washed her hands. She went back to the table. She was warm and present and perfectly herself for the rest of the night. She came home and sat on her kitchen floor and did not let herself cry, because crying would have been an admission, and she was not ready to admit anything, least of all to herself. The night everything shifted was a Wednesday in September. She had had the kind of week that takes something from you permanently. The Avon Project, 3 years of her life, the most important work she had ever done, a water resilience plan for 40,000 homes, had been shelved by the council with a 2-line email. No meeting, no explanation, 2 lines and a signature. She had sat at her desk for an hour and not been able to move. Then she had called him, not her best friend, not her sister, him. He had answered on the second ring. She said, "They killed the Avon Project." A pause, one breath. "I'm coming over," he said. "You really don't." "Margot." His voice was quiet and absolute. "I'm coming over." He arrived 40 minutes later with food she hadn't asked for. Thai, because she had mentioned once, 5 months ago, that it was the thing she ate when she needed comfort, and he had remembered. He had simply remembered. They sat on her kitchen floor together because that was where she already was. She talked for a long time. He didn't interrupt, didn't fix, didn't offer the platitudes of people who are uncomfortable with someone else's grief and need to move through it quickly. He simply stayed, present and still, and let her talk herself empty. At some point, she had leaned her head against his shoulder. She hadn't decided to. Her body had decided. The way the body makes decisions, it doesn't consult the mind about. The way you breathe without choosing to breathe. He went very still, not pulling away, not moving toward, just still. The stillness of someone who was holding something extraordinarily carefully. She lifted her head. They were very close. The kind of close that has a sound to it, a specific quality of air. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them moved. For 4 seconds, she would count them later. Alone in the dark, they were suspended in something that had no name and needed none. Then she shifted. He exhaled. They both looked at the wall. The moment passed, but it left a mark. Invisible, permanent, the way only certain moments are. She pulled back after that. Not all at once. Not in a way that required explaining. She was simply less available, slower to reply. She found reasons to be busy that were real enough to use and use them. She told herself she was being responsible, protecting something, a friendship, a marriage she had no business touching, her own heart, which had clearly stopped listening to instructions. She dated a man named Patrick for 2 months. Kind, uncomplicated, present in the simple ways. She tried. She genuinely tried. She ended it on a Sunday in January, sat with the silence of her flat afterward, and felt the particular loneliness of having made a sensible decision and having it change nothing fundamental. In April, he called. His voice was different, flattened, like a room with the furniture removed. "Helena and I are separating," he said. The world reorganized itself quietly around those words. "I'm so sorry," she said, and she was, fully and without complication, because Helena had been extraordinary and had done nothing wrong, and because the end of a marriage is a loss regardless of its necessity. "It's been coming for a long time," he said. "We've been honest with each other. It's as civil as these things can be." "Civil doesn't mean easy." "No," he said. "It doesn't mean easy at all." A pause. "Come over," she said. "I'll make dinner." "You can't cook." "I'll make dinner anyway." He almost laughed. It was the closest she had heard him come to it in weeks. He came. She cooked pasta badly and was honest about it, and he ate 2 portions and didn't mention it. They sat at her kitchen table and talked, and didn't talk about the thing neither of them was ready to talk about yet. She watched him across the table. This man she had been careful about for 11 months, and she thought, not yet. He is still inside the wound. Not yet. She kept that thought like a lantern she was shielding with both hands. The summer passed in the way summers pass when you are waiting for something you cannot name. He moved into a new flat. Too empty, too quiet, the specific hollow of a space a shared life has recently vacated. She helped him arrange it. Brought plants because a space needs something living. Hung a print he'd had in storage because the walls needed to remember he was someone with taste and history and a prior claim on his own life. She was steady, carefully, deliberately steady. She thought about Edinburgh sometimes. The conference dinner, the first lean forward, the ring she had seen and the door she had closed. She thought, if I had met him on a different day, in a different order, before the ring was there. She did not say it. September came back around, a Tuesday. Her kitchen, the overhead light too bright. He had come for dinner, real dinner this time. She had learned from her mistakes. There was a roast chicken and everything. The separation was nearly finalized. Something had come back into him lately. The flatness receding. The aliveness she had first seen in Edinburgh, returning in increments, like light through a window being slowly opened. They were mid-conversation. She was telling him about a new project, careful and cautious with her excitement the way she always was, as though naming it too loudly might call in some force to take it. He went quiet. She looked up. He was looking at her with an expression she had no filing system for. Not the warm look, not the thoughtful look, something she had never seen before, or had seen and never let herself register. David, she said, I wish I met you before choosing my wife. The kitchen held the words. Her heart did something it had been threatening to do for 11 months. She set down her glass. Don't, she started. I know, he said. I know all the reasons. I know the timing. I know what you're going to say. He looked at the table, then back at her, direct and unflinching. But I have spent 11 months being honest about everything except the most important thing. And I decided I was not going to do that to you. You are the most honest person I know. You deserve honesty back. She held his gaze. You didn't leave because of me, she said. No. Firm. Absolute. Helena and I failed each other completely and privately long before any of this. You know that. She did know that. She had watched it from a careful distance that had cost her something. Then what are you saying? She asked. Her voice was steadier than she felt. I'm saying, he stopped, gathered himself. I'm saying that I sat across from you in Edinburgh and understood something I hadn't understood before, about what it was possible to feel, about the kind of person I wanted to be in a room with for the rest of my life. A beat, and I had already chosen, and I have had to carry that. The kitchen was absolutely still. You have no idea, she said softly. He looked at her. You have no idea, she said again, how long I have been carrying the same thing. His face changed. Margot, I pulled away from you for 4 months, she said. I dated someone I had no business dating because I was trying to feel something uncomplicated. I have sat in this kitchen with you 100 times and chosen, every single time, to say nothing. Her voice didn't break. She wouldn't let it. Because you were married, and then because you were grieving, and I was not going to be the person who made herself a factor in either of those things. He stood up. She stood up. She didn't know which happened first. It didn't matter. They were standing on opposite sides of the kitchen table, and the distance between them was approximately 4 feet and also approximately 11 months and also nothing at all. I'm not asking for anything right now, he said. I need you to know that. I know where you are, she said. I'm not asking either. But I needed you to know, she said, that it goes both ways, that's all. Just both ways. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he picked up her wine glass, walked to the counter, topped it up with the bottle on the side, and set it back in front of her. Such a small thing. Such an unbearably tender thing. She laughed. The real kind. The kind that escapes from somewhere undefended, that you cannot produce on purpose, that only arrives when something has caught you completely off guard. He sat back down. He was smiling. The slow smile. The one she had catalogued in Edinburgh and carried for 11 months without meaning to. "So," he said. "So," she said. Outside the window, London moved through its autumn evening, steady and indifferent. Inside, everything was unresolved and everything had changed, and the space between them felt, for the first time, like possibility rather than distance. They stayed at that table until midnight, talking about everything and nothing, beginning quietly and without ceremony, the rest of it. There is a kind of love that nobody writes enough about. Not the kind that announces itself, not the kind that burns everything down and asks forgiveness later. This kind. The love that sits with you in your kitchen and remembers what food you eat when you're broken. The love that comes over without being asked and stays without being invited to stay. The love that notices the small things, the cold mug, the fraying hem, the way you always end up on the floor in your hardest moments and says nothing and remembers everything. The love that costs you something real to protect. There is a reason this kind of story doesn't get told at full volume, because it lives in the quiet, in the things not said, in the space between what you feel and what you allow yourself to do with it. But quiet is not the same as small, and restrained is not the same as absent. Some of the largest loves in the world have lived in the space of a kitchen table and a topped-up wine glass, and two people who finally stopped carrying something alone. I want to ask you something. Have you ever loved someone from the right distance, not because the feeling wasn't real, but because you understood that the feeling didn't make the action right? Have you ever sat with something enormous and said nothing, not from cowardice, but from a deep and quiet respect for someone else's life? And is there something you have been carrying for a long time that deserves, finally, to be said out loud? Some things are worth waiting for. Some people are worth being patient about. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply hold the truth carefully until the moment it is finally safe to set it down. Leave your thoughts below. Please like, share this video, and subscribe. See you in the next video. Thank you.